What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Botania. Today, guys, we are going to be automating the production of Terrasteel. Now, the main reason that I want to do this is because we have a lot of different upgrades that we need to make very soon for our armor, tools, all that stuff, and it's going to require a fair bit of Terrasteel. Now, if you remember, the Terrasteel producing setup was right over here last time. It was just sitting there randomly, and it wasn't really doing anything. So today we're going to be setting one up that is going to allow us to put all of our stuff in a chest, flip a lever, and it's going to produce all the Terrasteel possible, and then put it into another chest, and that's all that we have to do. Now, this is kind of, I guess you could say it's an overcomplicated setup for what you actually are doing. You can easily just manually do it, but I thought this was pretty darn cool, and if you're mass producing it, this actually will help out a lot. So to set this up, we are going to need a fair bit of stuff. You're going to need 1 repeater, 2 comparators, 3 dispensers, 2 redstone torches, a lever, and then I have a stack of redstone. You probably don't even need half a stack. Along with that, you're going to need 2 chests, a hopper, 7 item frames, a spark augment dominant. You could use a recessive one, but there's a couple reasons that I'm going to go over as to why you would not want to use that. A diluted mana pool. You could use a regular mana pool in this case, but we're going to use a diluted one, then a regular mana pool. 2 open crates, then of course you're going to need the entire Terrasteel production setup, which is 5 living rock, 4 lapis blocks, and then the terrestrial agglomeration plate, let's just not even try and pronounce that, a mana spreader, a mana detector, 5 floating hopperhocks. They could be regular hopperhocks for certain portions of this, but you're just going to want to go with floating for the most part. I think you need at least 2 of them floating. Then you're going to need 3 sparks, 3 infestation spores, a hovering hourglass, and 15 or more sand. Any less, and it's not going to actually function properly. So you need at least 15 sand, but if you want to throw in, 2 red sand, that's perfectly fine also, or anything above 15 sand. And then you don't actually need the Terrasteel. You can wait until you produce it to actually put this in an item frame, but I have the Terrasteel ready to go. And then I've got the mana steel, mana pearl, and mana diamond. We just need 1 of those of each because we're going to be putting them in item frames. And then I've got a couple different, we have 11 iron here. I thought we had 10, but we've got the iron, ender pearl, and diamond. You need at least 1 of each of these, again, to put them in the item frames. And then you can have a bunch if you want to test it out. So we're going to be pulling all this stuff out from here, and I don't know if we're going to have enough inventory room for it. There's a fair bit of stuff that we have to work with, but then we can head over and set it up. Now, something that's funny is a lot of people, typically comment on how the builds that I make are really good, and, I really don't come up with many of the builds that I actually put, especially in this series right now. I guess we can get rid of this for now. But that's mainly because a lot of the builds have already been, done. There's practical reasons. Stuff like this build we did yesterday. I did not come up with this. There are some minor tweaks in here for me, but the main build I did not come up with. And so today we're doing a build that I have not seen anyone do. I even made a point of looking it up to make sure that I was doing one that was original. And I have not seen a video on people automating Terrasteel just using Botania. So we're going to do that today. It's a lot easier to do if you actually have other mods to work with, but we really don't have that, so it makes it a little bit more interesting, kind of fun to do. So over here is the area we're going to be working in. It occurred to me that I made this area much bigger than it needed to be in terms of depth. But to start out, the first thing that we need to do is get down our, work area for actually making the Terrasteel. Now, I'm kind of going to work backwards in this setup. But what we're going to do is get this out, and we're going to put this kind of, not really in the center, but we're going to get it a little bit more centralized than you'd think. So we're going to leave a little bit of room open. I guess we can put it right here. And I think this should be good enough in the space. Do we want to put it... I might need to move this over one now that I think about it, but I think if we do it right here, we should be okay. So we can put this down. We'll do the living rock, the lapis, and the plate. We're just going to call it the plate. And we'll put it down like this, and then we can come over, grab out an open crate, and grab out some living rock blocks. And then we can build up one, up another. Now, you might think you can just throw the open crate down like this. It actually doesn't always function like that, mainly just because I think it registers that this block is a full block below it, and therefore it will not drop the stuff. So what we're going to do is throw down one above that, and then we can just break this and get it back, because we're going to need that later. And so what this is going to do is this is going to be our dropping area for all of the stuff we have just created, which is going to be, of course, the mana diamond, the mana pearl, and the mana steel ingots. So we need to throw some item frames on here to actually register that. And so we'll throw them on right here. And we can put these in there then. Doesn't matter what order you do. And then we can come in the back and we can get a floating hopper hawk and throw it down. Now, of course, it really doesn't matter what side you throw it down on. It just needs to be adjacent to these. We do not put an infestation spore on this one. And now we need to worry a little bit about kind of the redstone setup for this. So we're first going to put a spark down right on here. So the reason you do this is because if you guys don't already know, unless you have a ton of mana spreaders, you are not going to be able to transfer mana to the plate fast enough that the things will not despawn, or at least you don't want it to take 5 minutes. A regular mana spreader cannot manage to transfer mana fast enough. I don't actually know about an Elven or Gaia one, but at least a single mana spreader cannot transfer mana fast enough. And so what we're going to do is use sparks, and those are a very common way of doing it, but we still have a mana spreader. And the main reason for that is because the mana spreader is going to allow us to detect when mana is actually being transferred into this thing, because the spark doesn't do it instantly. So what we can do is basically throw down this mana detector right here, and then we can take a mana spreader, which is right here. We can throw it down and we can bind it to this plate right here. Now it's important that you bind it to the plate even if it's facing in the right direction. You need to make sure it's actually sending it to this plate over here. Now what this is going to do is basically we are going to put a mana pool down somewhere near this. I'm going to put it down right here, and the reason I'm going to put it down outside, we're eventually going to put a wall here if we want to, but we're going to put it down right here, and mainly just so I can see how much mana is in here when we go to run the setup, because if you don't have enough mana in here, then there's no point in actually running it, or else you're just going to waste some residual mana that you have. Now what this is going to do, once we put a spark on this, is basically when we want to make Terrasteel here, all of this stuff, and I know that's annoying, so I'm actually going to stop this while we're working over here. But basically what's going to happen here is when you have this setup going, it's going to get all of these from the setup we're about to do. It's going to drop them down, and the minute they drop here, it is going to start pulling mana through. And so this mana spreader is going to fire bursts of mana to the plate, and it's going to go through the mana detector. Unfortunately, you cannot see mana in a mana detector that's going through sparks unless I did something very, very wrong. It can only pick up mana pulses, so you have to have the mana pulse, and that'll give us a redstone signal. And this redstone signal, we are going to make it so that it basically turns off this hopper hawk from picking stuff up and dropping it until there is nothing there. Because if you drop a bunch of ingredients on the plate at once, it can't make like 5 Terrasteel ingots at once. It needs there to only be the 3 ingredients it needs for a single one. Then that process needs to finish, and then it can go again. So we're basically going to be taking the redstone signal this detector gives from the pulse, and then we're going to be kind of extending it and giving it to this hopper hawk here so that it doesn't actually continue going. So we're going to take a living rock block, or whatever block you're using. We're going to build out right here, and we are going to put down a redstone torch. Then we're going to take another one out right here, and we are going to put down another redstone torch right there. And of course that means that this will be able to function normally right now. And then we are going to take a redstone repeater, push it into this block right here. Then we're going to get some more redstone and bring it around right here. 2 redstone there, 2 redstone there, and we are going to use comparators here to extend the pulse, because if you don't know, the mana detector's pulse is going to be very, very short because it goes through a burst. And if you can imagine, it's going to be a lot of just like on and off of the redstone. It'll just be tick, 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 because the pulses come very fast, but they are not, like, the redstone that comes from them is not long enough that it will be one consecutive redstone signal. It'll be a bunch of very, very fast redstone signals that tick on and off. So what we do is with this, if you don't already know, when the redstone comes in, it's going to have a power level of, let's just say it starts with a power level of 13. It's going to go over, and then it'll slowly decay by 1, so then it'll be power level 12, and then 11, and then if I'm doing this right, it should be 10, and it just keeps going around and around and around until it finally dies off. And so what this does is basically we'll continue the signal up here until it is done, because eventually this would die off. It isn't permanent, but by the time this one gets to a low enough power, another burst will have gone through the mana detector and caused another redstone signal to sort of refresh it. and then it'll keep that the torch off, and then because the last mana burst will fire at the very end, this will keep going for maybe like 2-3 seconds after. There will be enough time to kind of finalize the Terrasteel, and then the hopperhock will turn back on, so it will be all good to go. Now, of course, there's going to be other timing, involved in this, but this ensures that the hopperhock is not going to pick up a bunch of the other stuff when you don't need it to. So, basically, like, think of it like this. If you have this mana pearl, this ingot down here, and you have this diamond right here, and they're all on the plate, not only do you not need other ones to be put down there, but you also need the ones that are currently there to not get picked up. Because if they're sitting down here and this hopperhock is on, it's just going to keep picking them up and dropping them and picking them up and dropping them and going in a circle and a circle and a circle. So that's the main purpose about this. It also prevents it, if you have a slightly different setup in the next portion that we're going to do, from picking up extra and bringing them over here and dropping them down. But that also shouldn't be a problem. So mainly it's just going to prevent this stuff from getting picked up while it's being processed. Now, another great part is if you don't have the mana here for this setup and you're very close, it'll continue picking them up until the setup can go, and that'll prevent them from actually despawning. So you don't ever have to worry if you run out of mana while you're actually doing the whole process. So that should be good right there. Obviously, we need mana in here before we can actually show it off, but now the part comes where we need to be creating the rest of this stuff. We need to be making the iron, ender pearl, and diamond into those specific ingredients. So we're going to throw 2 different chests down right over here, and we're going to line them up so we can have one that gives us the Terrasteel, which can be right over, I want to make them symmetrical, so we'll just do one over here and one over here. And obviously these are very far apart, but mainly just because we're going to space them out since we're going to have a lot of stuff over here. And then we're going to come over here and we can put down, where is it, an item frame, and put the Terrasteel on this one, because this one will give the Terrasteel to us, so that we'll be done with that. And then we can throw down a hopperhock wherever we want. You got to make sure it's not getting a redstone signal, so I'm just going to throw it down below this whole setup, and you can just put it down here. I don't even think, I'll mine these blocks here and put down living rock just in case we, for some reason, can see through the cracks, and we can just throw that there to get some extra space. Should not be interfered with any redstone. And then over here, we're going to make a setup that is going to basically just drop the stuff for us. So we're going to take an open crate, we're going to throw it down right here, and then we have to come over and put a hopper down right here. Now, of course, you could just have a hopper with an open crate. It would require no chest, but I think the chest looks a little bit nicer. So then we can cover this back up. And basically what this is going to do is you're going to come over here, you're going to throw all of your stuff into this chest, and the open crate's going to drop them one at a time, and then they're going to get picked up in whatever processing setup is in this room, which is going to be the dispensers. Now, the reason I'm using 3 dispensers here is because obviously with Botania, there is no really good way of dropping all 3 items, one at a time. So if you only want one of each of them dropped, unfortunately, the dispenser cannot be set in a way that you can drop every item in there once for 3 different pulses, or else you could just use a pulse repeater and send 3 different pulses to one dispenser. That would make things a lot easier, but of course it is random in how the dispenser drops it, so every time it's not going to function properly. But what we're going to do right over here is take the diluted mana pool, and it doesn't need to necessarily get set down the way I'm going to set it down here. This actually might be a little bit crowded the way I'm going to set it up here, but I think we should be able to do it. Actually, we might, I'm trying to think, because this wall might be a little bit close. I may end up having to move this whole setup over one, which would be very unfortunate, but the way I set it up before, and we'll try setting it up this way, it should be okay, is we are going to do the mana pool right over here, so it's going to be directly next to the lapis block on one side of this setup, whichever side your redstone's not on, and then we are going to take a spark, and that'll put it down on this mana pool, and we are going to give it the dominant augment. So basically this is going to fill up. Now the reason we're using a diluted mana pool is it has a much smaller internal buffer for mana, and because we have the dominant augment, if we used a regular mana pool because we had a ton of mana, it would be fine, but basically we do not want this pulling a ton of mana from all over our base for no good reason. This right here is just enough mana to process all 3 ingredients, like one set of the 3 ingredients, and then it will refill before you have your next set going, which will be 15 seconds later, assuming you process more than one set at a time. But also the reason we don't have a recessive augment on this one right here is because we want to make sure that this one is not giving off mana to other ones that don't need it. So let's say, for example, this mana pool up here. This one does not need any of the mana, so if this one had a recessive augment, it would be wasting its mana on this pool, and we want to make sure that this one has as much mana as it can get while keeping this one full. So the recessive augment just kind of is based around where you locate it in your base. The dominant augment would be the way to go with this one though, just because we mainly want to make sure that this diluted mana pool is full, and this one stays relatively full, considering you need half a mana pool anyway to actually make the Terrasteel. So now that we have this, we are going to be setting up our dispensers, and we can set them up right like this. So we're going to place it down there, and then we're just going to build up on the sides and place another one down, and then we can build up over here and place another one down. So break this block and break these back here. So now what we can do is start putting the item frames onto these blocks so that they will have the correct items coming out of them, and I'm just going to place them down on this side, and I'm going to put it down on the back over here, like so, and it doesn't really matter which one is which, so we'll just grab these out. Always be careful when you're putting the ender pearl in here that you don't accidentally click on somewhere that is not the item frame itself. So there we go. We now have those item frames set, and what we're going to do is take some hopperhocks, and we're going to put them below these. Now, you can kind of change this setup a little bit with how, everything interacts when you actually put the hopperhocks down. If I'm doing something that, you'd prefer not to do. I've had problems though. There was a different setup that works a lot more efficiently than this if it worked theoretically, where you would put down your hopperhocks, you'd only need 2, and you could put them down right on each side of this dispenser, and then the redstone would run differently. It'd get run through the center and over all of them, and for some reason it would trigger the dispensers every time I tested it, on its own, but the minute I tried to put it into actual use, it would not work. So a little bit unfortunate, but we're going to throw these hopperhocks down below this. It should not interfere at all with this whole process, and what we can do is take the infestation spores and put them on these. Now, these might not be required, but a lot of the time when you drop an item, it can immediately get picked up by a hopperhock. So basically we want to make sure that the items have long enough to get to the mana pool and turn before they actually get picked back up, because if they do just get picked back up, it'll be in a never-ending cycle, and you want to make sure that the redstone is correct. I don't even know what is that. I don't know what that noise is. But you want to make sure that the redstone is correct, because if it gets messed up even a little bit, it's going to screw up the whole setup, because you need to make sure all 3 of these are coming out at the exact same time and making it over to this plate right here, or else it'll get completely screwed up. So now we need to worry about the redstone, and I'm actually thinking that we might need to move these item frames because of how I have to put some blocks down. So we could put the item frame, they kind of need to go in the center, these ones right here. So let's grab these and put them in the center. They should not affect at all any of the items coming out of here. So let's grab these and put them in the center. I think actually this is really the only one that has to go in the center, because of how we're going to wire the redstone. But we're going to make sure we put a block here so that the items do not get kicked out past the mana pool. And then we're going to run a block right here, a block right here, and a block right here. And this is going to allow us to run our redstone around. And we're going to go like this, and we got to break this torch. Oh yeah, and I'll have to move this hopperhock just above this right now, because I forgot. When we put it very close, actually no, we should be fine with this. Yeah, no, we should be fine with this, because the redstone won't be on when it's there. It won't affect this, and we already have this torch here, so that'll be fine right there. It should not get really impacted by this redstone, and worst case scenario, this is all you have to do. If we want to get rid of that block right there, which we actually probably should do so people aren't worried about it, we can just do that and come back out here, and it still circles around. You just want to make sure the entire redstone is going around to these. And then we're going to build out right over here and over here. So what we're going to do is basically set up a lever that's going to go right here above the input chest. And we are going to put this down. And we want to make it so that when we flip this lever, it's going to be both on and off at certain times. So we'll say that, let's put this down here. Basically, this is going to be off. Now, you want to start the setup as off, and then once you put your items in, you're going to flip it on. The reason behind this is because you don't want to be putting your items in, let the whole thing fill up, and then, have a pulse go from the hourglass while half the items are in there. because if that happens, you're only going to get certain items fired out. So let's say you're only going to get a diamond and an iron fired out, and there won't be any ender pearls in there, and then the whole thing is screwed up, and then you have to come in here and manually reset it. So unfortunately, you can't, make a foolproof setup for this, but we're going to put a hovering hourglass down, and then we're going to fill it with 15 sand right here. And what this is going to do is basically 15 seconds is just enough time for a whole process to run. So that's basically like right at the end of it. So what this will do is this will do nothing. It'll cause nothing to happen when there's already a signal here, because these are already triggered, and until the signal resets they won't trigger again. So you'll be able to put your items in, it'll fill up the dispensers, you flip the lever, the next pulse that comes from this will send all 3 of these out. They will get turned into their mana counterparts. They will get picked up by this hopperhock, assuming there's nothing on this plate, and then they will get dropped down. This will turn off the hopperhock because they are already down there. The process has started, and you don't want them to get picked up at all. And then the Terrasteel will form. These will come out again. The Terrasteel will get picked up, and the process will run again and again and again until your thing is completely finished. So the whole setup should be done now. We just need to get a little bit of mana over here, and I believe I have a mana tablet over there that I can grab for now, because we do need to make sure we get some recessive sparks putting mana over there. So we should have a mana tablet in here that we can use for this setup, and it should refill a little bit from this right here, but I think it refilled a little bit earlier. So we may need to steal some mana from one of these, like this one right here. Let's steal some mana from this one, because we need half a mana pool, which means we need basically a full mana tablet, and we actually probably want to grab another one and fill it up a little bit. So we'll throw that one down too. We'll let those fill up, and then we'll test out the setup. We'll see it go once. Obviously, we need to hook this up to the mana network, solely because it really just, it needs to get hooked up there in general. Now, we could actually put a dominant augment on this one too to pull mana over here from other stuff, but not super worried about it. So what we're going to do is throw this down right here. Nope. Okay. Oh, it actually did make it on there. Yes, we're going to let this fill up a little bit. We've got the diluted mana pool full over there, and we can start covering this stuff up, because this whole setup should be good to go if I can place the blocks correctly. It does look pretty darn cool, but unfortunately, I'd prefer to keep it covered up. So, oh my gosh, I cannot place blocks right now. This should be done in here, and we'll throw down this other one too, just to make sure. Put this down, and cover it up like that. Now, of course, we will eventually put down like a stair here, so we can actually open this chest properly, but make sure that this has over half a mana pool. We should throw this down in here and make sure that it works. I'm really hoping it works, but this is off right now. Eventually, I'll put a sign here. Okay, guys, so the first one that I tried actually didn't work. I found a slight error. I forgot to just break the block below the open crate in here, so they didn't drop out, and I was sitting here wondering why it didn't work. Just make sure you actually have the block below it broken so that they can fall out. Now we're going to go for round two in here. So we put them all in here. They should have sufficient time to get into the dispensers now, since there is now the open crate has space to drop them. Now we flip the lever on, and now it should be able to go. So if we listen, we'll hear the click. We should have heard all of those go in there. You can now hear the mana firing in there. You can see this pool going down. The redstone will be triggered, so they're not getting picked back up. This should have had just enough mana in it. The Terrasteel has now been made and should be in here. Oh, and we can't pick it up yet because we got to open this up. And boom, we have the Terrasteel ingot, and it would be reset and ready to go again, but we will flip it off so that that doesn't happen. And of course, you can hear that the dispensers will click when you flick them off, so you want to make sure that all of your Terrasteel has been processed before you actually turn the setup off, or else you might kick some out too early, and then it'll screw up your last piece of Terrasteel being processed. But that is the whole setup, guys. I think it's pretty darn awesome. This is a DrRageHard original, which probably explains why the redstone is slightly messy, and there are probably better ways to do it, but it'll get the job done for you, and you can always just say you have a DrRageHard original in your world. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you found it entertaining or informative in any way, please feel free to give it a like, as it does help me out a lot. If you have any tips on improving the redstone, please post them in the comments too, because that would be great, and I will talk to you guys later.